Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. My name's Mel. Thank you so much for joining me today for all the books I didn't talk about already this year. So if you've been around for a little while, you would know that I haven't been doing monthly reading wrap-ups recently. I have been doing genre wrap-ups, so it's been every 3 months for specific genres. I've decided to go back to monthly wrap-ups, so today I'm going to talk you through all the books that I haven't wrapped up at all yet this year, so that I can then switch over to monthly wrap-ups again. That will begin in January, which actually means that December will be wrapped up as a monthly wrap-up. So that's what we're going to do today. I am not in the mood to go and grab all of the books off my shelves and then have to put them back. So yeah, I'm just going to put the images here, but I do own some of these books. So anyway, first book that I want to talk about today is The Flames of Albion by Jean Menzies. Jean Menzies is a booktuber called Jean Bookish Thoughts, so you should definitely go and check out her channel if you haven't already and subscribe to her channel. She's fantastic. I've always really enjoyed Jean's channel, and I was super excited to hear that she had self-published this book, The Flames of Albion. So I was very excited to get it on my e-reader when I did find out that she had published it and read it at the first opportunity that I got. And I'm really glad that I did because I really enjoyed this book. On Corpile, I gave it 8.57, which equals 4 stars. The main reason why I didn't give this a full 5 stars was not through a lack of enjoyment. Like I said, I really enjoyed the book, but it is quite slow going, particularly at the beginning, which is fine because there's a lot of character development, but I felt like the pacing was a bit, it didn't have a pace that ran throughout the whole book. So the first part of the book was quite slow, and then at the end there was a lot that was amped up very quickly, which isn't necessarily a problem, but it just felt a bit, it wasn't perfect from my perspective, but I still really enjoyed it. Like I said, I still gave it 4 stars. I still think it was absolutely fantastic and definitely worth a read. Really enjoyable. So we follow Adira, and Adira is a young woman who works in a library, and in the world in which she lives, Albion, dragons exist, but all of the dragons that are currently alive are really quite old because there have been no new dragon hatchlings. There is an egg that is stored or displayed in the library where Adira works, but it was petrified, I think about 200 years beforehand or something like that. But then one day the egg suddenly seems to be alive again, and it seems to have a connection with Adira. So we follow Adira as she is learning about this new connection and getting ready for the dragon to hatch. Then we follow Adira once the dragon has hatched, and we follow the dragon as well, whose name is something, they call her Fia, but it's something longer, I can't remember, but it's Fia, what she's called. Because of this new situation, another dragon rider has come to where Adira lives with her dragon. They form a friendship, so it's very character focused and quite slow going, and quite a lot of time is spent with Adira and with Fia and with the other character, the other dragon rider, and developing those relationships and those characters, which isn't a problem for me because I'm quite a character-driven reader. I really enjoy really in-depth character building and world building, which I think was done really well here. But the main focus of the book is character development and relationships, I feel. Relationships of different natures. So there's a romantic relationship, there are really strong relationships, there are peer building relationships like what Adira and Fia have, and different mentor relationships and different things like that. Towards the end of the book, there starts to be a lot more information about the politics and the political situation, and we start to get a lot more information about what's going on in the world, and I think that that's going to be more important in the next book. So that was quite interesting as well. So yeah, I felt like it was quite slow going, but I felt like that was quite intentional, and like I said, I really enjoyed the way that the characters were developed and the relationships were developed, and I thought that Jean had a really lovely writing style. So I'm excited to read the next installment. But yeah, that is The Flames of Albion by Jean Menzies. So the next book that I want to talk about is The Two Towers by JRR Tolkien. You may know that I read The Fellowship of the Ring in... When did I read The Fellowship of the Ring? September, and then in October I read The Two Towers. So this is part of a read-along that Bethany from Beautifully Bookish Bethany was hosting, and she put on Twitter to say, is there anyone out there who wants to join me? And I was like, yes, pick me, which was a really, really fun experience. And Bethany is another person whose channel you should 100% go and subscribe to. We had a great time, myself and the other people who were involved in the read-along, and I really, really enjoyed my reread of The Two Towers. So this is the second book in The Lord of the Rings. I feel like I probably don't need to go into a huge amount of detail about what The Lord of the Rings is about. I feel like probably most people have some idea of what The Lord of the Rings is about, but The Two Towers is, like I said, the second installment. This is the part where, I don't want to go into spoilers, but this is the part where the Fellowship has split up for a number of reasons, and we follow a few of the different characters in their sort of own side stories. So I thoroughly enjoyed my reread of The Two Towers. This is a reread for me. I've read the Lord of the Rings trilogy, I don't know how many times, countless times. I have watched the films countless times. It is a childhood favourite of mine, so I'm not at all surprised that I enjoyed the reread, but I'm really, really glad that I enjoyed my reread of The Two Towers. I haven't read them for quite a while, and I feel like they really stood up to today. And just to my experience of reading lots of different fantasies, and yeah, I really, really enjoyed them. I think probably the most important theme in The Lord of the Rings is friendship and love between friends and loyalty between friends, and just what real friendship looks like and how you care for your friends. And that was 100% what we got in The Two Towers. I really feel like that was the most important message of the book. But there was a lot of really fun stuff, and it's really well written. The world building is phenomenal, I should say. It's just, there's so much information, it's so in-depth, and his characterization and the way that he's able to evoke emotions is just absolutely amazing. I gave it 9.14 on Pile, which is 5 stars, not surprisingly. If you have not read The Lord of the Rings and you are a fantasy reader, then you should go and read The Lord of the Rings ASAP. I also will now talk about The Return of the King, which is the final book in the trilogy. So this wraps up the story. I will say that if you have watched the Return of the King movie, there is stuff that you don't know, and yeah, you should go and read it, really. So it doesn't end the way that most people think it does, but anyway, that aside, I again absolutely loved my reread of The Return of the King. There was so many emotions in this book. There was so much love and so much devotion, and same thing again, it was just so about love and friendship and relationships, and loyalty, and it's just beautiful. And I really think that Tolkien is an amazing storyteller, an amazing world builder, an amazing character creator, and I just absolutely love this trilogy. I'm so glad I reread it. I'm so glad I reread it with other people who also loved it, and I'm glad we had that experience. So thank you so much, Bethany, for inviting me to be part of this read along, and yeah, it was just fantastic. The next book that I want to talk to you about is Pyramids by Terry Pratchett. So this is one of his Discworld books. It's a standalone within the Discworld series. It's actually quite an early book of his. I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with it. It's again another reread for me. I am buddy reading the Discworld books with Ellie from Earl Grey Books. I really enjoyed this one. I enjoyed my experience with it. So Pyramids is all of Terry Pratchett's Discworld novels are fantasy books, but they're really more about a comment on humanity and the way we live and the choices we make and the society we've created. So Pyramids is his book about ancient Egypt, basically. So we follow a character, Tepik, who is the prince of this country that is supposed to be analogous to Egypt, ancient Egypt, but he has been living in Ankh-Morpork, which is kind of a comparison to sort of 18th century, 19th century London, but potentially also New York. And so he has a lot of really modern ideas that don't really fit in with the place that he came from. And then due to a bunch of different things that happen, the land that he comes from gets enclosed in its own kind of magical bubble, and all of the gods and all of the legends and myths that the land believes in suddenly actually real. And Tepik has to try and fix this situation. That sounds really odd and kind of complicated. It is odd and kind of complicated, but I love the way that Terry Pratchett is able to take these kind of complicated things and create genuinely humorous, thought-provoking, fun, fantastical worlds. And even though the main point of his fantasy series is not necessarily a pure fantasy, it is about, like I said, a commentary on the world in which we live in and the way we choose to live, it is still a genuine world, fantastical world of its own. And he's so good at storytelling, he's so good at world building and characterization, and he's just a master, and I absolutely love Pratchett. I gave this particular book 8.29, which is 4 stars. It is not one of my favourites. It's his earlier work, and his writing is just less refined. He hasn't written as much. It isn't as well thought out as some of his later stuff. My favourite series in the Discord series is the Watch series, but yeah, I really enjoyed it, and yeah, gave it 4 stars. The next book that I want to talk to you about is Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. I loved this book. I had so much fun with this book. This is a middle grade fantasy book. If you like Harry Potter or Nevermore by Jessica Townsend, I think that you will really, really enjoy Amari and the Night Brothers. I gave it 8.71 in Corpile, which equates to 4 stars, but really that's a high 4 stars, so 4.5 or 4.75. It just didn't quite get 5 stars, I think mostly because it's a middle grade, so it reads a little bit young, which is fine because it's a middle grade, but yeah, it just reads a little bit young for me. But like I said, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I thought it was really, really fun. The analogy to Harry Potter and Nevermore, it is about a young teenager, I think she's about 11 or 12, who finds out that a magical world exists alongside the mundane world. And so it's our world, but there's a magical world that exists alongside our world, and there are forces within that magical world that are deliberately keeping it secret to keep both regular humans safe, but also to keep the magical world safe. And Amari discovers the truth and discovers about this magical world, and she is also trying to find her brother because her brother went missing, and she finds out that her brother has put her forward as an entrant into this kind of magical trial to be able to join I can't remember what it's called in the book, but basically the Ministry of Magic, but it's different, but that kind of idea. Another thing that I thought was really, really interesting about this book is that Amari is black. Her family are black. They live in a lower socioeconomic area of, I want to say Detroit, but I could be wrong, somewhere in the States. And there's actually quite a bit of a discussion around racism and around classism within America, but it's very gentle and it's done in a very kind of middle grade way, and just to make people aware of it. So Amari comes from this background, and a lot of the people that she comes to meet through this trial and through this magical ministry, she comes to meet people who are more well off and mostly are white, and so it's kind of a conversation around, like I said, racial relationships, which I find really, really interesting and I think is really important. But I love the way that that is done in this magical, whimsical, fun storytelling kind of way. So I thought that that was really, really clever, and like I said, I really, really enjoyed it. Next up, I read Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by Roald Dahl. This was a reread for me, and I read it for Believeathon, which is the middle grade readathon hosted by Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin. By the way, I've mentioned a few different people bit different booktubers now. I would like to just add that I will be putting their information in the description below, so you can go and find them and subscribe to them, and anyone else I talk about. But anyway, so yeah, I reread the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So for anyone that doesn't know what Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is about, we follow a young boy. I'm not sure how old he is, but he's not a teenager yet, a young boy who is very poor, lives with his family in a very small house and doesn't have a lot of stuff, doesn't have a lot of food. In his hometown where he lives in the UK, there is a chocolate factory, and it's run by Willy Wonka, who is a very well-known but very eccentric chocolate maker. And the chocolate factory is still working, but no one really knows how, because for a number of years no one's gone in or out, no one's seen Wonka, etc. And then just out of the blue, one day, Wonka decides that he's going to let 5 different children come into his factory and have a tour of the factory. The way that you gain access to that is through a golden ticket that is randomly put into 5 different chocolate bars. So, yeah. Now, I've heard a few people recently talk about the problematic elements of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and quite a few of Roald Dahl's books. I don't really want to talk about that at the moment, but I didn't think that I couldn't address it, if that makes sense. I did talk about some of this. I did go at length in a bit of a rant in my November, was it November? Yes, November vlog. So I'll link that in the description below if you want to go and check that out, just about some of the problematic elements, but what I thought that Dahl was trying to say. So yeah, it's whimsical, it's silly. I personally think it's very sarcastic and isn't meant to be taken super seriously. I do think that there are some very problematic elements to do, particularly with the treatment of children, but also to do with slavery. So it's not to ignore those facts, but I do think that they were allegories rather than necessarily intended to be taken literally or seriously. But that doesn't mean that that's okay and that it should be allowed, and certainly it wouldn't stand up in this modern world, but I didn't take it too seriously. So anyway, that's my take on that. Next up, I want to talk to you about Scythe by Neil Shusterman. So this is the first book in the Arc of the Scythe trilogy. I loved this book. I thought it was absolutely amazing. I gave it 5 stars. In Corpile, I gave it 9.29. So like I said, 5 stars. This book blew me away completely. We follow 2 main characters, Rowan and Citra, and both of them have been made an apprentice to a Scythe Faraday. Now in the world, it's a utopian / dystopian world, future world, and in this world, humanity have managed to cure all illnesses and in fact cure death. So nobody dies anymore of natural causes, but that led to another problem, which is overpopulation. So what they have done as a way around this is they now have scythes, and the scythes are charged with killing people, and they call it gleaning, and they're responsible for keeping population under check. Every scythe has their own way of making this decision. They have a quota, and they have to try and monitor things like they're not allowed to just kill black people, for example. So they have to make sure that they have certain things they have to keep in mind, and they have a quota. Yeah, like I said, this blew me away. I think there are some really interesting philosophical discussions around the nature of humanity, around what makes us who and what we are, around death, around beauty, around meaning, what gives life meaning, and I just found it incredibly interesting and incredibly powerful. I just loved this book. I thought it was so well written, and like I said, I thought the philosophical conversations were incredibly well done. They're not heavy-handed at all, but it's very clear what Neil Shusterman was getting at, but I think it's done in such a way as to encourage people to think about it rather than just, like I said, it's not heavy-handed. It's not just, here's the information, here's what you're supposed to think of that. It's, here's some ideas. Have you thought about it from this angle? What if this happened? What would we do about this? And I just thought it was amazing and absolutely brilliant. I was really genuinely amazed with the way that he was able to write this book because, like I said, it deals with some really interesting and quite heavy philosophical concepts without being heavy-handed, but with a genuinely interesting story and a genuinely interesting world building and characters, and I just thought that was immensely satisfying to read and interesting. I think this would be an amazing book to study either at high school or university level. I think that it would be a really interesting introduction to philosophy, and I think that it would be a really, really amazing way to also study storytelling and the power of storytelling and how stories have been and can be used to discuss the human condition. So I'm just blown away by this book, and I'm super excited to read Thunderhead and then The Toll. Next up, we have The Secret Keeper by Kate Morton. I gave this 9 in Corpa, which is 5 stars. I really, really, really enjoyed this book. I'm not sure if it's pure literary fiction. It has literary fiction kind of elements to it, but I would say that it's probably more of a contemporary novel. But it's one of these novels where we switch backwards and forwards in time, and yeah, there's a mystery. It is kind of a domestic mystery as well. So we follow a few different characters. One of the main characters we follow is Laurel, and when Laurel was a teenager, she witnessed something that happened to her family that was quite shocking, but gets kind of swept under the rug. And when she's older and her mother is dying, she is trying to figure out what that was about, what happened, and she's trying to delve into her mother's past. So we follow Laurel as she's trying to answer these questions, but then we also follow her mother. We also follow a few different people back in the 1930s and 40s because it's during the Second World War in London. And I just thought it was brilliantly written. Fantastic characterization. I really like stories where we do those time switches and we have different points of view and we're trying to uncover a mystery and we're getting little bits of information as we go through. So I really enjoyed that. I thought it was incredibly well done. I thought all the bits were woven together really, really well. Really intricate. And yeah, I just really, really enjoyed it. I didn't see the twist coming at the very end. I thought I had it all figured out, and then at the very end there was a new thing, a new discovery, and I did not see it coming at all, and I thought it was done incredibly well. So yeah, I'm really excited about this book. I really enjoyed it. I definitely think it's something I would reread, and I highly recommend it. Alright, so those are all the books that I needed to discuss with you today. I'll be doing a December wrap-up, which will have all the books I read in December in January, early January, so keep an eye out for that. Please comment below if you have any thoughts on any of the books that I read. Have you read any of the books that I read? What did you think of them? If you would like to leave me a comment but you don't know what, then I would absolutely love it if you would leave me a stack of books, because I had quite a stack of books to talk to you about. All of my social media details are listed in the description below, so if you'd like to go and follow me on any of those other platforms, please feel free to do so. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I really do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I would absolutely love it if you would subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up. Like I said, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.